Buying versus renting is really one of the biggest topics that we discuss regarding real estate and purchasing. The question of renting versus buying, like a lot of things, is going to come down to a particular situation or a particular desire. Long-term financial well-being is going to be had owning a home. There's no way to get around the fact that the middle class in America has been built off of homeownership since the 40s. When you boil that down and you look at the here and now, should I buy, should I rent, really depends on a couple different things. There is some flexibility that comes along with renting. You don't have to make repairs. You can pick up and move in a year if you want to. But you will never establish ownership of something that you're paying rent for. Owning a home, on the other hand, can come with its drawbacks. You've got to cut the grass and you got to make sure the plumbing is maintained and the electrical is maintained. But as you're building equity in that house and you're paying your monthly payment every month and buying more ownership into that house, you have that equity over time. The way to look at it is, if you're renting a home, you're taking money out of your left pocket and you're giving it to a landlord. When you're paying your mortgage, you're taking your money from your left pocket and then putting it into your right. If you sell the home, move, you can use that equity to go towards your next purchase versus just paying a deposit and getting back into another rental. One of the issues that a lot of people bring up to me with regards to renting versus buying is, with a rental, there's no commitment there. They can pick up and go. They don't need to get permission to leave. But one of the other issues that people say is they can't make that space their own. Not only do you get the aspects of financial freedom over time when you own your own home, but you get the ability to personalize and improve your own space. If you're renting a home, you're less likely to make improvements and updates to that home to bring it value. When you own a home, you can buy it for a certain price. And naturally, as you go to sell it and the years go on, it's going to appreciate in most cases. But you can also do things to the house that are going to help establish higher value and increase rate of return so that when you go sell it, you make even more money. The long story short is, can renting be a good decision for you? Sure. Can owning a home be a good decision for you? In most cases, over time, it will be. In order to find out what makes the most sense for you, it's best to sit down and talk about what your long-term financial goals are and to see if homeownership is something that is within reach now, even though you think it might not be.